Good evening. I am Julie Hemmert-Whites, Carroll High School graduate from the class of 1994 and Director of Alumni Relations. Welcome to the 6th Distinguished Alumni Hall of Fame induction ceremony. It is such an honor for me to be part of this event and to work closely with the awardees in preparing for the ceremony. These inductees reflect what is best about Carroll High School. In a few minutes, we will begin dinner, but first join me in thanking our musician, Senior Sophia Murray, as well as our student singers, seniors Will Taylor and Sadie Rondo, and as well as freshman Michael Taylor. I also want to thank Matt Sableski, principal of Carroll High School, and Pam Staten-Tips, Director of Alumni Relations, Director of Advancement, and the entire Carroll community for supporting this event. But most of all, I'd like to thank the Alumni Association's Awards and Recognition Committee for their dedication in making this evening absolutely perfect. Each and every one of the committee members had a role in this event, and they give of their time again and again, all for the love of Carroll High School. Join me in thanking the selection committee, but please hold your applause until the end. Committee members, please stand as I announce your name. Chairperson, Jim Fleischer, class of 1985. Jeannie Hyde McManus, class of 1966. Susie Koontz Roselius, class of 1966. Patricia Pierre Kretz, class of 1968. Kathy Kuntz Heeb, class of 1970. Dr. Greg Notstein, class of 1971. Mary Hyder, class of 1974. Kathy Webben Jackson, class of 1975. Kim Tim, class of 1986. Mark McNulty, class of 1994. Ryan Ireland, class of 2003. And Mary Colin and Tom Hofler, both retired and much loved Carroll teachers. Please join me in thanking. At this time, I'd like to introduce Carroll's President of the Alumni Association, Pete Williams. Is Pete here? Okay, yay. Okay. Class of 1998. Pete has served on the Alumni Association since March of 2007. Pete's passion and dedication to Carroll was evident as he took the role of Vice President in August of that same year. Pete often refers to the Carroll community as a patriot nation and believes that all graduates can make a difference. Please join me in welcoming Pete Williams.
Well, thank you and welcome. Inductees, Principal Sableski, honored guests, Carroll faculty and staff, and Patriot families. As Julie said, my name is Pete Williams, class of 1998, and I'm the president of the Carroll High School Alumni Association. As president of the Alumni Association, one finds out that Carroll High School is a great many things to a great many different people. It is an institution acclaimed for excellence. It is a community sustained in spirit, and it is a family founded in faith, at a time when the world could use all three of those. Among the many things that the Alumni Association does, none is more important than the support that we provide for families that choose Carroll in the form of scholarships. So at this time, I'd like to recognize the 2016 recipients of the Carroll High School Alumni Association scholarships. So I'll call the names of the recipients. I'd ask you to stand if you're present, and I'd ask you to hold applause until we've read off all the names. From the class of 2017, Abby McNamara. From the class of 2018, Abigail Shahady. From the class of 2019, Jeffrey Klepaz. And from the class of 2020, Brittany Sargent and Amelia Harlow. Congratulations. At this time, I'd like to introduce Father Robert Obermeyer, the third principal of Carroll High School, who will lead us in an opening prayer. Father Bob served as principal from 1974 through 1979. Under his leadership, the Industrial Arts Center was built, and the social justice program was added to the school's curriculum. As principal, Father Bob felt as if his role was similar to that of a conductor of an orchestra, just trying to keep it all together. One lesson he tried to teach his students at Carroll was that love equals respect. respect yourself, respect others, and respect God. Please join me in welcoming Father Obermeyer.
I'm very honored to be here. My job tonight is to offer a prayer. And so to make it simple, like I usually do, we sign ourselves in the name of the Father, Son, and Holy Spirit. And together we pray, bless us, O Lord, in these thy gifts, which we are about to receive from your bounty, through Christ our Lord. Amen. God bless all of you.
Good evening, alumni, family, friends, faculty, staff, and welcome to the 6th biennial induction ceremony for the Carroll High School Alumni Association Distinguished Alumni Hall of Fame. I'm Jim Fleischer, class of 1985, and I have the privilege of serving as the chairperson of the committee for the Distinguished Hall of Fame. We finally reached the magic moment tonight, ladies and gentlemen. We gather here to introduce, to honor, and to induct 7 worthy and outstanding candidates into the Carroll High School Distinguished Hall of Fame class of 2016. This is the reason that we as friends, family, colleagues, and classmates gather here this evening. We are here to support, to celebrate, and to honor the best of the best. This is no small feat, ladies and gentlemen, no trifling matter. Carroll High School has graduated over 12,000 students since it first opened its doors on August 18 of 1961, over 55 years ago. Her graduates have gone on to fields and endeavors as diverse as medicine, higher education, philanthropic missions, law, politics, the clergy, engineering, journalism, music and the arts, and yes, we've even developed a few rocket scientists. Of the thousands of students that have blessed the halls of Carroll, a select few, far fewer than 1%, in fact, have been inducted into this Hall of Fame. Our committee and the school seek out, we research, we evaluate candidates for the Hall of Fame. But Carroll High School, as it sits in its humble and idyllic beauty and wonder on Linden Avenue, doesn't have the benefit that you as alumni have. You who have reached out into the world, you who have had such a profound and positive effect upon it. We need you, parents, alumni, faculty, former faculty, friends of Carroll, you who are outside of the confines of Dayton, Ohio, you who have reached out into the world to help us identify our alumni who have done great things. So if you would, if you know that Carroll grad who's made such a large difference in the world, who's helped the poor, who has healed the sick, who has done truly great things, please let us know about him or her. You can go online, give us the information. I believe in your booklets tonight there's a nomination form, or if you want, you can call our most important committee member, Julie Whites, who is also works at Carroll High School. Before we move on to the induction ceremony itself with our current inductees, I'd like to acknowledge and recognize a group of people who are here with us tonight, existing members of the Hall of Fame. If you would, when I call your name, please stand. I would ask that you please hold your applause until I finish introducing the 7 individuals who are here with us tonight. Cheryl Mchenry, class of 1974. Ted Fecky, class of 1973. David Gasper, class of 1974. Dr. Greg Notstein, class of 1971. Notstein, I'm sorry, Greg. Ed Robeloth, class of 1966. One of my favorite teachers, Sister Mary Alice Stein, Honorary Patriot, class of 2014. Sister, I have to do this because you did this to me so many times. And last but not least, Julie Thurman Thorner, class of 1981. I'll be finished soon, I promise. But I have one last confession that I have to make, and that is this, that our committee has another reason why we select the best of the best to join the Hall of Fame. It's not simply for the achievements and the accomplishments that these people have made, the great things that they have done, but every so often, sometimes we ask our members to come and help us out. Every other year when this ceremony is planned by our committee, the committee has one overriding thought, and it's always expressed every single time we do this. Will Cheryl Mchenry please MC our event? Every time, without fail, she takes time away from her busy profession. She takes time away from all the other things that she does, and she contributes her time and agrees to MC this ceremony. What can you say about Cheryl Mchenry? She's a Dayton icon. What can't you say about Cheryl Mchenry? Not much. She's accomplished most of all that there is to accomplish in TV and journalism. But I had occasion to ask her co-anchor and friend James Brown for a few stories just to give you a little bit of a flavor for who Cheryl is. And he gave me a couple. I'd like to read them for you here today, if you would bear with me. I'm getting a little old. Oh. One more, though. This has got to be better. Okay. Apparently, there are a few things you can't say about Cheryl Mckenna. Cheryl, remind me. We'll take those to the shredder after the ceremony. But on a serious note, and I'm about finished here, Cheryl Mchenry is without doubt or reservation one of the finest persons and one of the most accomplished professionals that Carroll High School has ever had the privilege to know. You can see her achievements in the booklets that you have tonight, but her most notable achievement, of course, being her graduation from Carroll High School. But after that momentous event, Cheryl went on to a radio career and then went on to a career as a reporter and a news anchor for WHIO-TV, Channel 7. She has won multiple news Emmys over the years. She has not once, but twice been honored as the best anchor by the Associated Press. She has received the regional Edward R. Murrow Award for an outstanding news special she produced in 2010. And yes, she's a former inductee into the Distinguished Hall of Fame, class of 2008. It's not her only Hall of Fame, though. In 2013, she was inducted into the Dayton Area Broadcasters Hall of Fame. She's also enshrined in the Radio and TV Broadcasters Hall of Fame of Ohio. If you haven't had a chance to see Cheryl Mchenry MC one of our events, get ready. She is without equal, and she is a true patriot. Please join me in welcoming Cheryl Mchenry.
That's a lot to live up to. Good evening. Good to see you all. Okay, then just a quick story. I'm glad that you threw those things away. My co-anchor, James Brown, is a wonderful man. He's a big white guy. His name's James Brown, but he's a great guy. And, you know, if you think that I have a big head, James Brown has a large noggin. I mean, he has a physically large head. So I always kid him about that, but he's the nicest human being. And, you know, all the nice things that Jim said about me here, you would think that I have a big head, but every time that I begin to get one, I am knocked down to size. I was in one of those shoe warehouse stores recently, and I go up to the register to pay for the shoes, and the young man behind the counter said, "You look familiar." And I never know what to say, even after 35 years of anchoring local news. I think, you know, because if I say, well, I anchor the news on Channel 7, he'll go, no, that ain't it. I never watch the news. So this particular time, you know, he was just smiling at me, and there was nobody else around, so I kind of leaned in, and after he said, "You look familiar," and I said, "Well, I do work in television," and he said, "I thought you looked like Judge Judy." So just ring up the stinking shoes, will ya? It is indeed an honor to be here tonight with all of you as we induct our 2016 class of distinguished Carroll alumni to the Hall of Fame. On this mid-October night, I must say it is refreshing to see red and blue and have it not stand for Trump and Clinton. Just saying. Oh, you can napkins. Here, those colors stand for unity and family and strong academics and Christian values, and all the reasons people send their kids to Carroll. Tonight, we will induct 6 Carroll alumni and 1 honorary patriot. They are people who took the love and support of their family, the talent God gave them, and the discipline, hard work, and values that the Carroll community helped nurture, and rose to the top of their professions, became community leaders and public servants. And that's the common theme among all the inductees. They live to serve others and make our world a much better place. At this time, I'd like to introduce the principal of Carroll High School, Matt Zableski. Matt?
Thank you, Cheryl. You're going to hear a lot of tremendous people here tonight, and they have a lot of wisdom. I am not one of them, and the Buckeyes kick off in an hour, so I'll get moving right along. I would like to thank the committee, especially Julie Whites. Julie is one of the most tireless workers I know, and she's painstaking in everything she does, and this event is truly a reflection of her, so thank you, Julie, and your committee. Yesterday, we had the inductees come and speak to our student body, which is always a highlight, I think, of the entire weekend, but maybe of the year. And it's interesting to gauge high school students. You never really know what they're thinking as they sit there staring blankly at the speakers. But it was interesting to hear throughout the day that they really were impacted by what was said, and they really valued that experience. There were a couple of themes, I think, that really came forth in those talks. The first was service. All the inductees have a commitment to service, and many of them, the second theme is they all have some sort of connection to STEM, science, technology, engineering, and math. And those are some really important values that we have at Carroll. Certainly as part of our mission is to inspire young people to learn all they can about different areas of knowledge, especially nowadays in science, technology, engineering, math, which is certainly a buzzword now, but those jobs that are coming are very important. But then to take that knowledge and to do something with it, to do more, to be more for their community and their country and their world. And so to see living examples of that was very powerful. The third theme, actually, that came out was there is universal love and respect for Joe Sens, and that's well-deserved. So I'm excited that he's here tonight to be honored. Because Joe, I think, realized long before STEM was ever a term, and people realized that science, technology, engineering, math were really, really important, and he built a school around, in large part, that idea that we have to have students prepared for those types of jobs. So thank you to Joe. I want to assure you all that your alma mater is doing very, very well. We have about 750 students this year, a very diverse group. We have 8 National Merit Scholars in this year's senior class. That is a very significant number. That's more than any other school in the Dayton area other than Centerville, which has like 4 times the number of students that we do. And it's also second in the Archdiocese to St. X, which is a very exclusive boys' school down in Cincinnati. So we're very, very proud of that accomplishment from our students. Last year we had a teams team, which is sort of the national STEM competition, finished 5th in the country, which is very exciting. On a broad scope, we have innovative instruction. All of our students, well, 3/4 of our students now, all of our students next year will have laptops for individual instruction. We have dual credit courses, almost 100 students in dual credit courses. Our dynamic arts program, visual, music, and drama are thriving. Our athletics continue to be excellent. We just had our girls golf team actually compete in the state tournament for the first time in school history today, which was very exciting for them. And we continue to do great things. And this year we're actually learning new ways to look at community and to view each other and look at leadership through something called the house system. Melissa Fisher, I see her over there, and she said the other day to me, she said, you know, there's just a buzz, a really positive feeling in the building now, and we're very excited this year. Good things are happening. So I can say with pride that we are giving today's Carroll student a strong foundation in faith and knowledge that will be critical to their success and really the success of our world. However, our work is not done. Every day we have challenges, and we have big challenges, like all Catholic schools. But if you turn on the news that Cheryl delivers every day, you know that our world there's never been a time in our world when we need Catholic schools more than right now. There is darkness in our world, and we believe at Carroll that we can be a source of light. Salt for the earth and light for the world is what I continually say to people that we strive to be. And so I'm confident in saying that our graduates, when they move on into the world, will look out and say, today is a great day because they are patriots, and they're going to be the leaders of our world tomorrow. So I'm very excited to hear about the past. I can tell you the future is very bright, and thank you all for being here tonight.
And we'll begin. I just want to ask real quickly, how many people are here to honor Joe Sens? How many came specifically? Stand up. Okay, John Slidham, you came from what, Seattle? Wow, that is tremendous. All right, you guys can sit down. For 45 of the 54 years Carroll High School has been around, a guy named Joe Sens was there, a man most of us still respectfully call Mr. Sens. He started in 1966 as a science teacher, and he was Carroll's version of the science guy. He was STEM, as Matt said, before STEM was a thing. In fact, Sens kind of spells out the same thing, S-E-N-S, science, engineering, nerdy stuff. Retired teacher Tom Hofler nominated Mr. Sens. He says the kids loved Joe's class, and Joe loved the kids. He says Joe would get so into what he was teaching that he became like the absent-minded professor. He'd have chalk all over him. But he was teaching, and his students were learning. Mr. Sens moved up the ladder to department chairperson, assistant principal, spent the last 28 years as principal. For a man who's described as a very private person with a gentle demeanor, he certainly had a big impact on the school. As principal, he wanted the best for Carroll High School. He increased the number of honors and AP courses. I have a nephew who got out of college a whole year early because of the AP courses he took at Carroll. Imagine a lot of other people saved on their tuition bill because of that reason, too. He hired great teachers. As Tom Hofler says, Joe set an avenue where he wanted you to teach and let you go. Mr. Sens is as much a Carroll trademark as the Liberty Bell. He practically lived at school, doing everything in his power to promote a positive learning environment and one that supports Catholic values. A brilliant science mind with the people skills to run a high school and run it well. How rare is that? Tom Hofler says many classes voted Joe Sens Teacher of the Year at Carroll, and that Joe, being Joe, never wanted anything like that. Well, maybe he doesn't want this honor either. Too bad, Mr. Sens. A Carroll patriot in every sense of the word. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome our recipient of the Honorary Patriot Award, Joe Sens.
I understand they were taking a poll on how long I'd be speaking. That's not fair, guys. Appreciate your very kind words, Cheryl. I'd like to thank the members of the Hall of Fame Committee for the recognition they're presenting this evening. Also like to give a word of thanks to Julie Weitz, as Mr. Valesky gave a few moments ago. She is quite the girl, quite the person in organizing this. So I appreciate your thoughtfulness, and I am grateful. I have lived a charmed life. I am blessed to have a family that is very precious to me. They hold a special place in my heart, and they have made my life a one that's very much worth living. I also hold dear my family at Carroll. I was at Carroll for 45 years, as Cheryl mentioned. I came to know so many people during that time. so many relationships and friendships, parents and teachers and students and alumni, many more. The feeling of family was a part of Carroll. It was a feeling to be held in high regard, a feeling that those of us there worked hard to build. It didn't just happen. But it was something you wanted to hold on to be a part of, and it made Carroll a very special place. I'd walk into school in the morning and into the office, and the secretaries always had a smile on their faces. They would really brighten my day. They called themselves Joe's Angels, and they were indeed angelic. And then I'd walk into my office, and Bill Fisher, a very special maintenance man, made sure there was a Reese's peanut butter cup on my desk. Bill took good care of me. And mine too. Sweet chocolate from a sweet man. I had great assistant principals. It was an honor and a privilege to work with so many wonderful people. The faculty had a caring spirit about them. They loved the children. They truly loved the children. They served them well and impacted greatly on their education. It was a special faculty, a powerful faculty. And they carried the Carroll banner into the classroom with great pride. There were a lot of memories made during the years at Carroll that I was there. Some were of a serious nature. Some were sad and evoked tears. And some were funny and created a lot of laughter. There's so many funny stories that some of us have shared together before. I remember being a young teacher in the chemistry lab, bottom floor of the school. Heard cheering coming from various classrooms. It got louder and louder. Looked out the window and saw a senior boy running across the front lawn. He didn't have a stitch of clothes on. And about 4 or 5 yards behind him was our beloved principal, Father Nyhazel, chasing after this young man. It was funny. And Father Nyhazel got his man. We used to have a faculty pep rally at Carroll for the Altar football game. In one particular instance, one pep rally, the students were given a Kleenex as they entered the stadium. And after a limerick was read over the mic, the students would raise a hand holding the Kleenex and say, "Oh, for goodness sake. Oh, for goodness sake. Oh, for goodness sake. Oh, for goodness sake." In this pep rally, there were a lot of lip syncing going on. You remember Gladys Knight and the Pips? Well, we were playing Alders, so we had Saddest Night and the Rips. That night when I came into the stadium, I walked down towards the student section, and they began chanting a cheer that we had taught them earlier in the day. Carroll, boom, ba, ah. Got to do that one with me, all together now. Carroll, boom, ba, ah. You're good. So silly. One day in class, my early years of teaching, I noticed my fly was open and my zipper was broken, and so I stood behind the teacher's desk for the rest of the period And the bell rang, and I rushed down to Sister Veronita's room. Sister taught sewing. So I knocked on the door and said, "Sister, I need your help." And I told her what was wrong. And she said, "Mr. Sense." And she looked at me again. By this time, all of her students were sitting there. "Mr. Sense." Then she said, "Go in the closet and take off your pants." So all the kids were sitting there. So I went in the closet dutifully. I took off my pants. And very meekly, I handed them out the door. Well, I was totally embarrassed. But I'm going to tell you, the students loved that. I was standing in the office one morning before school, and a junior girl came into the office saying, Mr. Sense, I've got to talk to you." I said, "Hi, Molly, what's going on? What can I help you with?" She hands me a pair of underpants, or panties, and she said, "Mr. Sense, I was over the street at McDonald's, and I bent over, and these snapped. I would like to go home and change." I said, "By all means, go home and change." I walk into the restroom one morning, and over by a urinal, these two guys were talking in the stalls. Heard this conversation, "Man, this paper is rough." Yes, it's scratching my rear end. Now, they were more descriptive than that. Corn cobs would be better than this. So this went on for a while, and I went over and I knocked on one of the walls of the stalls. I said, "Men, it sounds like you're having a problem in there. I'm going to rush right out and get you some Charmin." We all laughed and laughed. Interestingly, I saw these guys. I didn't know that it was them, but these two guys come up to me in the cafeteria in time. And they said, "Mr. Sense, do you have the Charmin yet?" I had a passion for teaching. I loved it, and did the best I could to convey that passion and understanding to my students. They were so much fun to work with. We learned together, and we had fun together. Over the years as principal, in talks or whatever means I could, I tried to convey certain core principles, as I called them, that would help students move forward in their lives. And there were several of them. I'm going to mention briefly just 4 of them to you. We recommended students to nourish their work ethic. Work hard, we would say, and good things will happen. We pointed out that you don't have to be the smartest person in the world, but you can be the grittiest. And when you fall down, get back up and never give up. Obermeyer says that never give up attitude is what matters most. That determination to keep on going after falling down will serve you well for a lifetime. The second, we ask kids to be a dreamer. Set goals for yourself and see them through to their end. This means taking reasonable risk, since reasonable risk can lead to new experiences and a more fulfilling life. Picture in your mind, we said, where you want to go or where you want to be. Dream, work hard, and in the words of Charlie Rose, write your story in life. Make it a great story. Make all of us proud of what you can be, what you have been, and what you will do. Thirdly, never forget the importance of the gift of time. I would tell the students many times that in their busy lives, spend more time with your parents. You'll never regret it. And parents, spend more time with your children. The gift of time, more important than any possession that you could give. A few years ago, my dad lay near death in a nursing home. He loved visits from myself and others. I sat there holding his hand one morning and said, "Dad, you seem restless. Let me sing you a little song." And he said, "No, I'm in enough pain already." I said, "No, I'll make the song as sweet as the birds singing in the early morning in the spring." "No," he said, "you'll make them all fly south." I left that day. He had one more request for me. Would I please return his keys so he could drive again? Dad passed away a week after that. It was those visits and others that caused me to realize that the sharing of my most precious possession, my time, was so important to him. My time given freely mattered the most. My dad was the most generous and the most forgiving person I have ever known, although I don't know if he really ever forgave me for taking his keys. I learned a lot from him. Perhaps the most important lesson he taught me was how precious can be the gift of time. Finally, a few years ago, I was on a plane headed for New York, and on that plane there were several members of the U.S. Women's Olympic basketball team. I sat next to one young lady, and we had a great conversation. And before we departed, I was getting up from my seat, whatever, she grabbed my hand and she said, "Remember, in all things, God is your partner." Simple words, but profound meaning. I can't tell you how many times I use those words with students at Carroll, a number of times. I reminded them that God walks hand in hand with them. He is there to help you celebrate in times of triumph. He is there to console you when you are hurting. Go to him, we would say, in time of need. And the satisfaction you will take in building a relationship with him will warm your heart. God is your partner. The last memory I'd like to share with you, the morning, the day before graduation, the year I retired, a junior boy named Soul stopped by the office as he had every day for over 2 weeks. He pulled up a chair, put his arms up, relaxed, like he owned the place. And he said, "Mr. Sens, how you doing?" I said, I'm doing well, Soul. Soul had lost his dad several years before. Wanted to play basketball badly, but he didn't make the team, so the coach made him a manager, a position in which he took great pride. I said, "Soul, you better get back to class now." He said, "Mr. Sens, I'm going to miss you." He started crying. We hugged each other, tears flowed, tender moments. There were many of them in my days at Carroll, many tender moments. They served as constant reminders that kids need to be loved and that they are worth loving. About an hour later, there was another knock on my door. It was a parent who had just paid his last tuition payment. He had a smile on his face. He wasn't the typical Carroll parent. having a long ponytail and wearing a black leather vest. But he was a very nice man. He said he wanted to meet me and thank me and the teachers for the great education he received at Carroll. We chatted for a few moments, and then he bent over the desk a little and said, "Mr. Sens, do you mind if I use the word ducker?" Now, you know he didn't say ducker. I said, "No, that's fine. I've heard the word before." He said, "Well, when Danny was 10 years old, he was able to take motorcycle engines apart and put them back together again, the way they should be." I knew right then and there that little ducker was going to amount to something. A few years ago, my granddaughter, Joelle, made a Mother's Day card for her mom. The verse read, "Dear Mom, I love you more than anything else in the whole wide world. You are lucky to have me." When I look at the life story that I have written, I am a lucky man. My family and my extended family at Carroll have made me feel that way. Tennyson has said, "I am a part of all whom I have met." I am fortunate that my family, whom I treasure so much, and the wonderful people at Carroll and my extended family are a part of me. They have made my journey through life so meaningful and one to be cherished. They have made my life one worth living, and I am grateful. It's been a pleasure sharing with you this evening. I wish you well.
Well, I think you got next year's MC. Did you have any idea he was so funny? I'm glad you finally came out of the closet. I mean, Sister Veronita's closet, Mr. Sens. Now something. We were all lucky to have you, Mr. Sens. Thank you. One of Mr. Sens' science students in those early years was Cheryl Connelly. Now, Cheryl embarked on quite the science career. If you read her bio, you'll see she's been involved in the science field her entire career. She has a PhD in biomedical science from Wright State. She's taught there and at UD. She's worked on everything from paternity testing to diabetes research and even helping identify the remains of 9/11 victims through DNA testing. She's had some very big jobs in our area, and even in the Philippines, where she's consulting laboratory director at an immunogenetics lab. I'm glad that doesn't have another syllable, immunogenetics. But her friends will also tell you, you would never have a clue talking to Cheryl how brilliant she is. She's social, outgoing, loves a good glass of wine. I know that from well-known wine aficionado Greg Notstein. You guys are legendary. She's also athletic and loves to golf. She goes on regional golf trips with 3 other women, one of whom, Joanne, told me that they went down to this course in Kentucky to golf. And the man in the pro shop says to them, "Now you ladies be real careful out there." Well, they smiled politely but rolled their eyes, and turns out this course was pretty hilly. So at one point, Cheryl lost her golf ball, and Joanne was driving the cart down a steep hill with Cheryl in the passenger seat to try to find it. Suddenly, Cheryl spots her ball and says, "There it is." Joanne turns sharply and promptly falls out of the golf cart, but it keeps going, and Cheryl's so focused on finding her ball, she doesn't even notice Joanne is no longer at the wheel. Cheryl has a twin sister, Carroll. She tells me when they were little, their mother, who'd been a tap dancer, was determined to make tap dancers out of Cheryl and Carroll. She says they were about 5 years old, on stage in front of an audience, in a chorus line, right next to each other. Well, one of them, they won't admit which one, miscounted the steps and stopped, and her twin ran right into her. And The twin who got run into was so incensed, right in front of everybody, she put her hands on her hips and said to the other one, "Now you stop that." Their father thought it was great. He got a big kick out of the whole thing. Their mother was not amused, and thus ended the Connolly twins' tap dancing career. I do believe, though, that the science world is very glad that Cheryl Connelly joined them instead of the Rockettes. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome to the Distinguished Alumni Hall of Fame, Dr. Cheryl Connelly.
Thank you very much. Thank you, all of you, the alumni and faculty and the planning committee, because this is just a wonderful event. So it is a distinct honor to be inducted into the Distinguished Hall of Fame, and I feel very humbled to be here in the presence of such accomplished graduates. As I previously pointed out, I'm the oldest of the inductees here, and thus have an early snapshot of Carroll High School, having graduated in 1969. Yesterday, when I took the tour of Carroll High School, I observed that the students were not in uniform, and our principal indicated that it was a special occasion, thus they didn't have to wear their uniforms that day. We, on the other hand, had these horrible gray jumpers with white blouses and red sweaters back then, and that was the dress code. Now, skirts had to be a certain length. They had to be below the knee, and occasionally the nuns would check to make sure that your skirts were below the knee. Now, we had a few methods of getting around these unannounced inspections, so when we knew it was coming up, we made sure we had our sweaters on. We would unbutton our jumper, and as the nun, we were kneeling on the ground, and as the nun went down to check the length of our jumpers, we would bend over the nun as far as we possibly could without falling on top of her. If we did that, we passed the test. I was in the original Carroll High School marching band, or chorus band, and we had about 18 members at the time. My instrument was a tenor sax and clarinet, while my identical twin, as Cheryl mentioned, played the trombone. We wore hand-me-down uniforms that came from Centerville High School, but hey, CHS is CHS. And we were so proud. We were so proud. There are many stories I can tell about the band, but one in particular comes to mind where we were playing an annual Christmas pageant. We were sitting on a bleacher set up to the left in the auditorium, and there were folding chairs on the very top rung. Our brass section got that part of the bleachers. We had just finished a rendition of "O Holy Night" and stood for a bow, and one of the brass pieces, I think it was the second trumpet, accidentally moved his chair backwards just slightly. As he sat down for the second part of the pageant, he fell off the back of the bleachers, and not only did he fall, but he took the entire brass section out with him. We got a lot of attention that night, and fortunately no one got hurt. My experience with that band taught me a lot about teamwork, and I'll always cherish those memories. We were small, but we were mighty, and we had that kind of attitude. Father Nyheisel was the principal at the time when I graduated from Carroll. The school was yet in its infancy, but the faculty were awe-inspiring. I was going to be a language/music major, not only because it interested me, but because these classes got me out of gym and home economics. This may not have served me well, as years later I tried to prepare a frozen turkey in the microwave oven for family dinner, and I think we ended up eating pizza that night. At this point, I must admit I told this story yesterday, but if you're anything like me, if the story was told yesterday, you've forgotten it already. And if you still remember it, please bear with me, it's short. But Mr. Sens was my sophomore biology teacher, having recently graduated from UD. Back then, our classes were segregated, so it was an all-girls biology class. The mission we were studying was comparative anatomy, and our first specimen that we were supposed to be working on was a pickled worm. One of my classmates was not up to the task. In fact, she was sobbing and indicated that she could not possibly do this. Mr. Stens was starting to lose control of this class, but he was very calm and collected. He simply folded his arms, walked up to the front of the class, and he said, "Girls, girls." He said, "UD never prepared me for this type of situation." He said, "Do you have any suggestions?" We were all able to find humor in this, and the tears ended, and we were able to get through the rest of the specimens without any problem. I truly value my education here at Carroll High School. It instilled in me the discipline to pursue my career as a scientist. Studying clinical laboratory sciences and biomedical sciences only reinforced my faith in God, that He created such a wonderfully complex world, and we're only uncovering but a fraction of its complexity. I stressed to our students yesterday that they will see incredible, incredible things happening in the world of science in their lifetime. I have seen development in such fields as nanotechnology, lab on a chip, genetic personalized medicine, gene splicing to correct congenital and other types of diseases, and other amazing advances in science. I admit to our students that I'm a little bit jealous of what they're going to see in their lifetime to not be part of this movement, and I encourage them to seek their dreams and enjoy the ride, and the ride that they'll be embarking on, a wonderful journey. It is upon all of us to inspire the next generation as they explore their potentials. In conclusion, I want to thank you, my God, and my father, Bill Connelly, as well as Carroll High School experience for this incredible journey I've gone through. Thank you.
Strong, muscular football player, incredibly funny, with a magnetic personality. Everybody loved Mike Netherton. At least that's what his good friend John McHale told me. He said people just gravitated toward Mike. But you know, even the most popular among us have their tough times and their dark days. Mike is now a nationally recognized expert in the field of alcoholism and drug dependency treatment. But the road to get there was not easy, and he traveled it with his own addiction. And his success, at least in part, was born of his own recovery. Sometimes you wonder why bad things happen to people. Why is there illness? Why is there something like addiction? And why do we or our loved ones have to suffer? Maybe it's so that once we've weathered the storm, when we get to the other side, we can relate to others going through the same thing. It's about learning compassion for our fellow human beings. I don't know Mike's personal story, but I do know that his desire to help others recover is what has driven him and become his passion, and yes, his livelihood. He served as an executive with the renowned Betty Ford Center, and he did such great work there that he was hired a few years ago to become the CEO of Northbound Treatment Services in Newport Beach, California. His bio contains academic accomplishments, board memberships, accolades, but I'll bet if you ask him, his greatest successes are the people he's helped recover. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Michael Netherton, class of 1970, to the Carroll High School Distinguished Alumni Hall of Fame.
Joe, we need to hang out more. Those were some of the best stories. Telling about that streaker with Father Nyheisel chasing him, my wife Maria leans over, she says, "Was that you?" My reputation has preceded me this evening, but Cheryl, thank you. I'm really excited, I'm humbled, I'm grateful to be here. And yesterday at lunch, we sit down and my student ambassador, I just saw, where's Abby? We sit down at lunch and on the luncheon table, I know I finally arrived since my picture is now on a piece of candy. And I just thought that was awesome and just incredible. So, and we have like 500 of these. My wife, my daughter, my sisters, my brother-in-law, my nephews, my nieces, we just filled our pockets with this. So, but I digress. May 1989, I walk into the lobby of Firestone Hall at the Betty Ford Center, and it's my first day on the job, and I know that Mrs. Ford is there because the entourage, the cars are out there, the Secret Service, they're all out there, and Betty always traveled with 4 Secret Service, and 3 men and 1 woman. So I walk into the lobby, and I kind of glance to the left, and I start shaking my head. And I walk over to this guy, and I said, "Are you kidding me? You're protecting the life of the former First Lady of the United States?" And he looked at me, and he said, "Obviously, our background check system is flawed." And it was a guy by the name of Kevin Burrito that I graduated with from Carroll High School in 1970. And we're everywhere. I mean, we're just everywhere. And, but you know, I walked into Carroll High School yesterday, and whatever I was going to share this evening, it changed immediately. And Matt talked about the strength of leadership. And what I felt immediately when I walked in there was the culture. And this young woman, Abby, who was my ambassador, came up to me and she introduced herself, and she looked me in the eye and she shook my hand, and I had the same reaction that Cheryl had. I said, "Abby, is this a casual Friday?" And she said, "No." She kind of looked at me quizzically, and I said, "Where are the ties?" And well, those went, ties left, shorts came on, and they were wearing these T-shirts with Gonzaga and St. Mary's, and she started to explain this house system, and I says, "It sounds like, you know, Harry Potter." She said, "That's exactly what it is." So, but it was an amazing experience for me to go back there, and Cheryl's right. Everything I have in my life today is because I'm sober. And I said to the student body yesterday, you know, frequently when I stand like I'm standing here tonight in front of a group of people behind a podium, I will say, "My name is Mike and I'm an alcoholic." And then they'll say, "Hi, Mike," if you know. But that's what it is. And I shared with the student body yesterday, I would have been less than authentic had I not acknowledged that, because it has shaped my career and my life for nearly 40 years. And I was given the gift of sobriety as a relatively young man. And everything I have in my life today that's of purpose, that has any value and any meaning, is because I'm sober. And I say that tonight because we all go through these challenges in our life, every one of us. And just when we think it's the darkest, God shows up in ways that are just unexpected and powerful and special. And that has brought me to this place this evening. I don't know when it was when Kathy Koontz called me and she said, "Hey, you've been selected to be inducted into the Alumni Hall of Fame." I think I take my phone, I'm looking at it, and my first thought was, if you only knew. But you do know. We all know. Because we've all been through those challenges. Every one of us have been through those challenges. And what I felt yesterday, and I was looking into the student body, and I saw how respectful these young folks were and how attentive. And I thought, this is only possible because of the culture and the legacy that has been created by the leadership at Carroll High School. Absolutely. And that's true. Because without that, the rest of it becomes meaningless, and it will not withstand the test of time. But my family has been blessed. I've got 5 brothers and sisters. We are all proud patriots and all proud graduates of Carroll High School. And I shared yesterday, and I'll share again tonight, is that Carroll High School and the teachers and the people that influenced my life held me to an expectation that I was unwilling to hold myself to, that I couldn't. They had a vision for me that I had yet to articulate. They saw something in me that perhaps might serve the greater good down the road. And that's been my journey. You know, I love history. And I really, one of the guys that I really have read a lot and studied a lot is Steve Jobs. I love what he did when he created Apple. You know. And one of his quotes that I use frequently, you know, is that we are put on this earth to put a dent in the universe, you know. And I think about that. And I thought about that yesterday as I'm staring in the eyes of the student body. And I believe today what we need, and I heard it referenced earlier, I think what we need in our young folks is a high degree of passion and integrity and accountability. And that's what I saw and witnessed and experienced yesterday as I was taking the tour, as I went to lunch, as Abby was sharing with me her dreams and visions for the future. And I will tell you, I felt a lot better leaving than when I arrived about the future of this country because of the young students that I experienced and the passion that I witnessed yesterday. You know. And one of the things I talk about and one of the things I reference is that Theodore Roosevelt in April of 1910 gave a speech at the Sorbonne in Paris. And the title of the speech was Citizenship in a Republic. But out of that hour-long speech, they've extracted a paragraph that's pretty famous, and it's called The Man in the Arena. And it goes something like this, and I think it's apropos. And it says, it's not the critic who counts, not the man who points out how the strong man stumbles or where the doer of deeds could have done them better. The credit belongs to the man who is actually in the arena, whose face is marred by dust and sweat and blood, who errs, who strives valiantly, and who comes short again and again because there is no effort without error and shortcoming. But who does strive to actually do the deeds, who knows the great devotions, the great enthusiasms, who spends himself in a worthy cause, and at best in the end knows the value of high achievement, and at worst, if he fails, at least he fails while daring greatly, so as to never be counted among those cold and timid souls who know neither victory nor defeat. And I am here to tell you that Carroll High School is a worthy cause. And I'm a recipient of that worthy cause. And I know today, as those students are launched on the world, and my hope would be is that they're launched as quickly as possible because we need them out there, is that we continue to provide opportunities like was provided to me and my brothers and sisters. And I stand here tonight honored as a recipient of this recognition, but I really speak for all the Nethertons, is that we love Carroll High School, and we are so appreciative of what is provided to each and every one of us. Thank you.
He got more done in 54 years than most of us ever scratched the surface. That's how Rick Scudder describes his good friend, a man he greatly admired. That man, Mike Osgood, can't be here physically, but he's here. His legacy lives on through all he did in his life. He had vision, to help turn the dilapidation and decay of St. Anne's Hill into the most beautifully restored historic homes in our area, doing much of the work himself. And if he didn't know how to do something, he taught himself. He created and became director of one of the top R&D facilities in the U.S. Air Force, transforming an abandoned old warehouse into Tech Edge Works Rapid Prototyping Center, also known as the Monster Garage. His final project with drones, he didn't live to see, but Rick Scudder says Mike's very good work is helping take down some very bad people over there. Another good friend of Mike Osgood sent along this video message from our nation's capital.
I want to thank the Archbishop Carroll High School Alumni Association for inducting my friend Mike Osgood into the Distinguished Alumni Hall of Fame. Mike was a true patriot who loved his family, his community, and his many friends. At Carroll High School, where the values of faith, knowledge, and community service are emphasized in and out of the classroom, Mike was taught valuable lessons that guided him in both his personal and professional life. He was always looking for ways to help others and contribute to the community. Whether it was buying and restoring blighted historic homes in the Huffman district, or turning an abandoned warehouse into a state-of-the-art research and development facility known as Tech Edge Works, or contributing his time and energy as host of volunteer and civic organizations, Mike showed us what a dedicated citizen can accomplish when they take a personal interest in community service. We can best honor his memory by striving to follow his example of dedication, integrity, and leadership, and continuing his work to make Dayton, Ohio, a better place to live and raise a family. Mike Osgood led a rich and purposeful life, full of passion, conviction, and he truly believed that one person could make a difference in our community. I am blessed to have known him and to have worked with him, and I'm honored to join you in celebrating his life. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, here to induct their dad, Mike Osgood, class of '78, into the Carroll High School Distinguished Alumni Hall of Fame. Please welcome Michael and Andrew Osgood.
Hi, my name is Michael. I'm currently a freshman at Carroll, and I'm really enjoying it. I'd just like to thank everyone for honoring my dad. He really loved Carroll, and he really wanted us to go there, and I can understand why. Since starting, I've really liked the people that go there, and I really am loving being a patriot. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Andrew. Thank you for giving my dad this award. He would be honored. My dad loved Carroll, and he really wanted us to go to school there. I am looking forward to being a patriot, too.
I really wish Mike were here to do this speech. But yesterday, Rick Scudder gave a beautiful, heartfelt speech honoring Mike. Rick, thank you. I had not intended to speak tonight, instead letting the boys be his voice. I see this award as Mike's legacy, and they are his legacy. So to me, it was fitting. But yesterday, Rick mentioned something that has been in my head ever since. So as I ran this morning, my brain started churning out something I'd like to share. Rick mentioned the house that Mike built when he was talking to the students. I'm sure it was in reference to Tech Edge Works, which is by far his most proud accomplishment professionally. Though his resume is quite extensive, how many people do you know that have run a custom grain combining business in Nevada, become a private pilot, restored numerous historic homes, received a master's degree in mechanical engineering, and run a rapid prototyping facility that supports our U.S. military? He was one of a kind. Tech Edge Works is dear to my heart because the men there continue to let us be a part of that home that Mike built. Thank you so much. But the biggest and best house that Mike built was our family. and the legacy he left to the boys of strength, drive, integrity, honor, humor, dedication, love, and spirituality. A spirituality that never faltered, even as he faced death. I know Carroll played a part in laying the foundation in the man he became. In our short time as patriots, I've been overwhelmed by the family feeling. Every time I go to a cross-country meet and see the environment John and Christine have created, I realize this is another house that Mike built. He wanted them to be here as they grew into young men. It is a home we are proud to be a part of. Thank you to this committee for the honor. Mike would be overwhelmed, honored, proud that you saw him worthy of it, and I'm honored to speak in his behalf.
Always stay humble and kind, sings Tim Mcgraw. If you talk to people who know Alan Thurman, that's how they describe him. He'd have plenty of reason not to be humble. He's had great success as a general surgeon in this area, served as president of the Dayton Surgical Society, received the Miami Valley Hospital Physicians Excellence Award, and he has shown his kindness by volunteering his skills to provide surgical care for the poor in Honduras. And he served our country in the U.S. Air Force Medical Corps, which included a deployment to Croatia. Pat Kretz taught Alan and Renee's sons at St. Luke and said Alan is always doing the right thing. He's very caring, very understanding, and never wants any attention brought to him. Nancy Trick's two sons are the same ages as the Thurman's boys, and she said Alan was the dad taking pictures of all the kids playing soccer, and then at the end of the season, he'd pass them out to all the parents, and we'd have these wonderful pictures from the season. Kind compliments of Alan. She describes him as just a solid guy, pleasant, nice, warm, and always, she said, had such a good perspective on life. His son, Kevin Thurman, my buddy, says, my dad is the best man I know. He's always put family first. Kevin remembers when Alan was overseas in the Air Force and he was going to miss younger son Mark's birthday. This was in the 90s, mind you. Well, Alan filmed a birthday wish for Mark and had it mailed back to the U.S. so the family could watch it on Mark's birthday and still have their dad with them on that special day. And Kevin says part of why his dad loves Carroll is because it is also a family, and that it was so incredible, as he puts it, to have some of the same teachers that taught him teach my brother and me. Always stay humble and kind. Alan Thurman could have written those lyrics because that's how he lives his life. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Alan Thurman, class of 1978, to the Carroll High School Distinguished Alumni Hall of Fame.
Thank you, Cheryl. I truly am grateful and humbled to be among tonight's inductees. Thank you, Pat Kretz, and the rest of the selection committee for considering me. It's even more special to be included in this group with one of my early mentors, Mr. Joe Sens. I can't think of anyone who embodies Carroll's essence more than Mr. Sens, as we've heard earlier. When I reflect on Carroll High School, I remember my classmates. The class of 1978 was full of bright and talented young people. You've just heard about all of the fantastic work of my late classmate, Mike Osgood. To be inducted tonight alongside Mike is also quite an honor. The accomplishments of all of tonight's inductees reflect so beautifully on our alma mater, for what we all share is the Carroll High School experience. It's without doubt that Carroll's academic preparation was essential for each of our advancement. As you've heard from others tonight, even more important has been Carroll High School's role as family. Carroll has been family for me on many levels. I've been student, athlete, leader, alumnus, and parent. My sons, Kevin and Mark, are 2009 and 2011 graduates. They had outstanding experiences at Carroll, and I'm extremely proud that they were both Patriot of the Year Award recipients. I think I'm riding their coattails tonight getting this honor. I'm also so pleased they were able to travel here from Virginia and Florida to be with us tonight. Carroll has further been a family affair with my wife Renee, serving on the Education Committee chaired by Mr. Sens during Kevin and Mark's years. Renee was also on the selection committee that chose Matt Sableski as Carroll's 6th principal. As parents, we truly appreciate the wonderful staff, teachers, coaches, involved parents, and alumni of our great school. Christian values were reinforced for our sons in daily life and activities at Carroll. Even more important than their preparation for college coursework was the preparation for transitioning to independence and young adulthood. Carroll continues to be part of my family, with my niece Eve of the class of 2019 now attending. In between Eve and me are 14 additional Carroll graduates when you count my brothers, sisters, stepbrothers, stepsisters, spouses, and children. Eve's mother and my sister, Julie Thurman Thorner, was a 2010 inductee into the CHS Distinguished Alumni Hall of Fame. Our mother, Eileen Thurman Sullivan, and stepfather, Ken Sullivan, have been strong supporters of Catholic education and Carroll High School. In 2012, all of their children and spouses established the Ken and Eileen Thurman Sullivan Scholarship Fund at Carroll. The opportunities that Carroll students have to gain knowledge and learn problem solving are simply outstanding. Even as a teenager, I was able to appreciate that the quality of teaching prepared me very well for college. Better appreciated through the eyes of a parent is the role Carroll plays in the character development of generations of students. What sets Carroll apart is the lessons of character development are deeply intertwined with faith development. Carroll High School remains an unwavering educator of our Christian Catholic faith, and it's a place where love and faith are fostered. Faith binds all of us with God, and love binds all of us together. All of us here tonight are bound in faith and love by our connection to Carroll High School. This binding love extends beyond the boundaries of school, city, state, and country. One of the greatest examples of this love that I've witnessed is through medical brigades to Honduras. Classmates of mine from Notre Dame and St. Mary's College introduced me to an organization called Nuestros Pequeños Hermanos, which is Spanish for our little brothers and sisters. NPH is a Catholic-run organization of orphanages in Latin America and the Caribbean. I'm happy to share more information about NPH after the program if anyone's interested. My friends and classmates, Peter, who's an orthopedic surgeon, and his wife, Lulu, who's a nurse, established a surgery center called the Holy Family Surgery Center on the grounds of the NPH orphanage in Honduras. Medical and surgical care is provided at the center for the children and for people in the community who are unable to access the government-run healthcare system. With some encouragement from the Holy Spirit, Renee and I first went on a brigade, and since then we've been joined by our son Mark on subsequent brigades. To experience the generous, faith-filled, loving spirit of all the volunteers and see the sincere gratitude of the Hondurans is transformative. Those of us on the brigade truly receive more than we give. In my daily work as a physician and surgeon, I'm continually inspired by the examples of faith and love that I witness. I'm blessed to share in intimate parts of people's lives related to their health and illness. No matter our roles, we all find meaning in being important in and being a real part of someone's life. I hope the faculty and staff of Carroll High School realize just how important and how real they are in the lives of their students and families. Philosopher and author John Dewey said, "Education is not preparation for life. Education is life itself." What a tribute to our educators. They set us on a path of lifelong learning, Help us gain a deeper understanding and appreciation of our world and our faith. These are the things that define our lives. I'm deeply grateful for this Hall of Fame recognition. Thank you to the entire community that is Carroll High School for the blessings I've received. What an honor it is to have this opportunity to thank our educators and mentors, for their work truly is life-giving, life-enhancing, and life-sustaining. Indeed, today is a great day to be a patriot.
How many of us look back on high school and regret not getting to know many of our classmates? And then you see them at a reunion or you hear about them and you see the impact they're having and just wish you'd known them back then better. Well, that's the sentiment of one of Matt Joseph's classmates related to me about him. She does remember he was liked by everyone. She's probably impressed now to see him succeed in his career as a senior logistics consultant at Serco at Wright Pat. But she's probably more impressed to see the good work he's done in our community. He was elected to the Dayton City Commission in 2004, and he's still on the commission. I wanted to find out what his fellow commissioners think about Matt. So I talked to the mayor, Nan Whaley, who's worked with him for 11 years now. She gushed about Matt Joseph. She said he's one of those people who leads by example and that he tries to really live his faith by his deeds. He has served on the board of the House of Bread, the National Conference for Community and Justice, and the Mother Bruner Literacy Center, among many others. The mayor says Matt is definitely the leader on the commission when it comes to making sure we are an immigrant-friendly community, and that he, better than anyone, understands the importance of Dayton's role in the Dayton Peace Accords on Bosnia. It's near and dear to his heart because his wife, Marina, is from Bosnia. And the mayor told me something else that never made the news, but when they were in Bosnia this summer to mark the 20th anniversary of the Peace Accords, she says the State Department asked Matt to have a meeting with the Muslim leaders in the city of Mostar to talk to them about the importance of having elections, something they hadn't had in 8 years. The U.S. State Department, think about that, asked a city commissioner to engage in shuttle diplomacy. The mayor is quite impressed by that. But he isn't. She says he's great to work with and has no ego. And she isn't surprised at all he doesn't toot his own horn. Well, we're tooting it tonight. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in welcoming Matt Joseph, class of 1990, to the Carroll High School Distinguished Alumni Hall of Fame.
All right, nobody go telling that story to anybody about the leader in Mostar. It was supposed to be a quiet talk. All right, well, good evening, everyone. I gotta say right off, it is intimidating as heck to be part of a group like this. This is an incredible group of people. You've heard stories tonight. There's still more to come. You haven't even heard from the real American hero in our midst here. And you'll hear from him in just a minute. But I really am honored and humbled by this award. It's when I got the call from Jim, I was speechless. And you know, for a politician to be speechless, that's really something. I was really surprised, happy, and really happy, but really surprised. So thank you all, to the awards committee, particularly the Alumni Association. This is a real honor, and I'm very happy to be here to receive it. Yesterday, as you've heard, we had a chance to spend some time at Carroll, speak to the students, take a tour, have lunch, and I really enjoyed it. To borrow something that Mike said yesterday, it really felt like home. And for a place that, you know, I spent 4 years out of my 44, it was a funny feeling, but it did feel like home. I even got the chance to recognize that I'd spent a lot of time in that very gym running a lot of suicides back and forth. And Coach Hyder was up in the stands too, and I got to point him out too. It was his fault I ran so much here. But it did feel good to be back, really good to be back. It really was a pleasure. And actually, it says something I think it's been said already, but Matt Sableski, I think you and your staff did an excellent job preparing for us, making us feel welcome, and I want to thank you specifically for that. So I want to focus on one thing tonight. Yesterday I flaunted my use of the 5-sentence creative outline in front of the students, but today I'm just going to have one point. I want to talk about the advantage that being a graduate of Carroll High School has had in my life, especially my work life. So you all know from the bio I have 2 jobs. I'm a contractor on base, and the first one, it's mostly a daytime job, 8 to 5. And then other times, evenings and weekends, and whenever I can squeeze in a phone call, I'm a city commissioner. And my years at Carroll prepared me well for both of those things. So first, on base, I work with a really good group of people. We look for new ways to fix airplanes. And once we find them, we research them, we talk about them, we discuss them, we fund them, and we implement them. The point is to get planes back to folks like Lieutenant Colonel Middleton over here and his colleagues, the guys at the pointy end of the spear, as they like to talk about, get them back to them quickly and in good shape. Carroll prepared me for this by giving me a solid background in math and the sciences. And I have to say that it was sort of an unwilling push at first, especially with math, but thanks to especially Sister Katie and Mrs. Dietz, they brought me back in, made me see why it's useful for me, and were very patient with me because math doesn't come naturally for me. And here I am surrounded by all kinds of scientists and engineers, right? But sports offered me a chance to learn how to play as part of a team, how to work as part of a team, sometimes to lead and sometimes to follow, both of which you need. And I use that every day on base because sometimes I'm talking to people 5 levels above me, sometimes I'm talking to my team who I'm working with, and sometimes there's no transition between the two. So you have to be good at both of those. You have to be able to take orders and give them. Being at Carroll and being part of a team really trained me well for that. Also, I want to mention, too, that I had the chance at Carroll to practice leadership. I was a leader in a number of clubs, one of which was youth and government. We were talking about it yesterday over lunch. And just that early practice in being a leader has paid dividends down the road again and again and again. Being a leader is some people have a more natural way about them that leads them to leadership, and sometimes not. But everybody can use the practice. Everybody can use the practice. So that's the base job. For the other job, Carroll gave me what I need to succeed in government as well, in sometimes more subtle ways. I learned critical thinking with the guidance of the need for reason and mercy as taught by our faith. In particular, the discussions in my English classes. I had Miss Downey, then Miss Downey, Miss Worms, and Mr. Hemmert. And they were very good at making me think about things I didn't particularly want to think about, or I hadn't thought about, or that were new to me. And some of the discussions, especially Mr. Hemmert's, I had him for AP English. So I had super smart classmates, and there was always some off-the-wall comment and some argument that stretched my mind, made me think about things a different way, maybe look at things a different way, and it was really valuable. From the best teachers and coaches that I had, they taught me by example a number of things, including, first, I think the best ones gave people a chance. You give people a chance when they're new, when they come to you, give their ideas a chance, meet them where they're at. To listen, that was something I learned from the best teachers. Listen first before talking, and that has come in really handy. Even recently, like when I was listening to the Muslim leader in Mostar, listen first and then talk. It's a good lesson to learn. But this mix of learning by study and by example gave me the beginning of my framework for how to consider the key questions I face now, such as how to prioritize scarce resource spending, how to handle disputes, how to handle tough moral problems in the political world. Those two, as you know, don't naturally go together. It's always a rough convergence. And how to handle those questions, the framework that I was given by example and by study at Carroll helps me every day, literally every day. This framework, this base, this is my secret weapon. It really is. I feel I have the advantage some of my colleagues do not, because I have this criteria, this framework, this way of analyzing, this way of looking at things. It helps me make these tough decisions. It helps me plan for the hard work that I do to make the city better, and in looking in the long term too. So I feel very lucky to come from Carroll and to had such good teachers and coaches and such a good system to help give me this framework. And I have to say that in preparing for these challenges, in preparing me for these challenges, Carroll fit really nicely into what my parents taught me and my brothers. That we have a responsibility to help out where we can. We have a responsibility to use our talents well. The truth is, all I'm doing in both my careers is just following the example of love and responsibility that Mom and Dad showed us. Thank you, Mom and Dad. They're over there right now. And thanks to my brothers who graduated from Carroll also, Brad in '92 and Russ in '95, who have put up with me for a long time and have taught me a lot themselves. To my longtime friends from Carroll who took time to be here tonight, thank you. And of course, thank you to my wife for her support and patience through many long days and evenings, many years now of long days and evenings, for her filled with neighborhood meetings, campaigns, you name it. She sacrificed a lot of time and effort so I can serve my residents well. Some of you, I hope, are residents, serve you well too. And I wouldn't be standing here in front of you today without her, so thank you, babe. And I really don't want to end this without saying thank you to Julie Whites and Pam Tips. They really did a great job in organizing this, staying in contact with me when I was late in submitting things. They stayed on me, they were nice about it, they were patient, and they really made it a welcoming experience. So thank you both, and thank you all for this honor. I really appreciate it.
And then there's Charlie. Retired Carroll teacher Thomson Valesky calls Charlie Middleton a perfect example of our best and brightest choosing to serve our country. Charlie graduated at the top of his class, the class of '94. He was a standout athlete in track and cross country. He's already in the Carroll Athletic Hall of Fame. And he went to Princeton University and graduated with honors in engineering. With Charlie's intelligence, resume, and record of accomplishments, Thomson Valesky says he could have gone anywhere and made a whole lot of money, but he chose to go into the United States Air Force. He's a fighter pilot, and he's been in combat, having served on several missions, including Operation Iraqi Freedom, and he has over 2,000 flight hours. He's a test pilot, too, and along the way got a master's degree in engineering. He's the recipient of numerous awards and military medals, so many, I'm not sure you can fit them all on your uniform, Charlie. And he's now achieved the rank of lieutenant colonel. Who knows how much higher he'll fly? Thanks, Mr. Hemmert. But, or Sister Mary Alice. But more than his rank, Thomson Valesky calls Charlie a wonderful person, the kind of person you want an American to be. Indeed, he's not only a true Carroll patriot, but an American patriot in every sense of the word. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Charlie Middleton, class of '94, to the Distinguished Alumni Hall of Fame.
This has been an amazing night. Thank you, Cheryl, of course, for the kind introduction, and thank you, everyone, for the warm welcome. I'm definitely honored to be here tonight, along with the 6 amazing alumni joining this distinguished hall. First, the mandatory thank yous, so I don't forget. Thank you, Mom. Thank you, Dad. I owe you everything. Thank you also to the rest of my family and friends that are here tonight. Thank you especially to the teachers and the faculty for getting all of us to where we are today. Thank you to my classmates that are here and not here. Thank you to the committee and those who put on the great event tonight. Thank you everyone else for being here. It's been a fabulous evening. I don't know what to say about the speeches I've already heard. They were all so moving. I don't even want to talk. It's been such a great night. I don't want to ruin it, right? Especially Mr. Senza's speech. I heard him speak, obviously, many years at Carroll, and he was never that hilarious. So where was that, right? But honestly, it's been a fabulous night. I want to especially thank my wonderful wife, Wendy. We'll be celebrating our anniversary here in just a few days, so thank you. Wendy has a small bladder, so I'll try to make this quick. It's been a long night. All right. It's great to see so many faces from the early 90s here at Carroll. It was wonderful to meet Sister Mary Alice in the hall. I wasn't expecting her to be here. We had great classes in Latin class. She was probably the most easy teacher to make angry, though, so I can't count the number of times that she told us ite ad infernum, which you wouldn't think that nuns are allowed to tell students to go to hell. But I guess if it's in Latin, it's okay. I had particularly hoped to see Father Micah Holland here tonight. I don't think I've seen him since our graduation day. Father Mike gave a homily during our graduation mass, and his topic was actually the saying on the back of our cross-country team shirts from that year, a saying that I thought was, of course, incredibly clever, having helped to come up with it. But it was, everybody wants to go to heaven, but nobody's willing to die. Dig me a hole. I never got to thank Father Mike for that day. It was a fantastic memory, our graduation at Carroll, to be included there in the ceremony. I entered the Air Force the very day I graduated from college at Princeton, along with 4 other ROTC cadets. We had the commencement ceremony in the morning and were commissioned officers in the afternoon. At that time in 1998, we were in the heart of the dot-com boom. The stock market was roaring. The last war to liberate Kuwait was considered a great success in 1991, and there was some airstrike stuff happening in the Balkans, but it didn't really seem like a big deal to me at the time. Vietnam, of course, was a distant memory, and there was a Clinton in the White House. At the time, my classmates and I wondered whether we'd ever see combat or be asked to make any real sacrifices in real combat, in a real conflict. And honestly, the prospects seemed fairly low at the time. I went off to pilot training and on to F-16 special training after that. It takes a couple of years to train a fighter pilot, even in the basics. So I arrived at my first operational unit in July of 2001 in South Carolina, which meant that I was the newest pilot in the squadron 2 months later when the World Trade Center and the Pentagon were hit on September 11th. Though I did not realize it immediately at the time, the entire scope of my career changed in an instant. That following spring, I deployed for the first time to Saudi Arabia to enforce the no-fly zone over southern Iraq. Combat operations had recently kicked off in Afghanistan against the Taliban, and we thought that maybe we'd see some action. But it actually passed uneventfully for most of us. For me, the most noteworthy event was actually when I broke my nose playing basketball at the gym, and I got to come home a few days early. It wasn't worth it, even though my sister tells me now that my nose looked better than it was before. My dad asks if I'll get a Purple Heart for getting wounded in combat. I tell him, no, Dad, because the guy who elbowed my septum in half was not the enemy, he was an American. It was almost another year later when the most exciting portion of my career occurred. I was picked again to deploy in early 2003 to enforce the no-fly zone. After being in Saudi Arabia only a couple of weeks, the Iraq War kicked off to finally take down Saddam Hussein's Ba'ath Party government. It was an intensely nervous time for all us pilots. Every day, we weren't sure if everyone would come back or not, or what we'd be asked to destroy within Iraqi territory. We were flying 24-hour around-the-clock missions, and I was put on the day train schedule, which meant when the Shock and Awe campaign kicked off on the night of March 21st, 2003, to start the Iraq War, I was actually getting ready for bed. I had to be up in 6 hours for a mission the following morning. March 22nd, 2003 was my first real combat mission. My unit's objective was primarily to suppress the enemy air defenses, which meant that we would go into a target area first, orbit around for 20 or 30 minutes while other aircraft came in and dropped bombs, and then be the last to leave. All the while, we were searching for enemy radar sites to pop up on our displays so that we could try to shoot at them with an anti-radiation homing missile before they shot at us or the bomber aircraft. At the time, our intelligence guys were telling us that the city of Baghdad was, other than Moscow itself, the most heavily defended city in the world. Saddam Hussein basically put all of his best forces right there close to the city to protect himself. My 4-ship of formation of F-16s on that first morning were the very first 4 aircraft to fly over the city of Baghdad during daylight hours of the entire war. If that sounds dangerous, it was. It's about the most dangerous mission that you can get for a fighter pilot these days. The good news was that Iraq's defenses were not modernized, and they really had actually very little chance of actually hitting us. That doesn't mean, of course, that they didn't try. That first day, my wingman saw a missile shot vaguely up in our direction, and the next day I saw multiple bursts of heavy black smoke near our altitude as they targeted us with anti-aircraft artillery. We did shoot back, usually, if we were allowed to by the rules of engagement. In all, I shot 6 HARM missiles at enemy radars during the first 2 weeks of the war, plus a couple of Maverick missiles later at enemy tanks. As for myself, fortunately, nothing shot at me ever got very close to hitting, and honestly, cruising around at 500 miles an hour, up at 20,000 feet of altitude, you really don't feel very threatened because you can't even really see the enemy defenses very well from that high up. My most memorable couple of days actually came about a week into the war. One day I was scheduled to fly as the number 4 member of a 4-ship formation of F-16s. Even though I had upgraded to become a flight lead about a month prior to the deployment, I was always still scheduled as a wingman since there were so many other more experienced flight leads there. The flight lead is basically the one who talks on the radio, makes all the decisions, navigates, and essentially has all the responsibility for getting the mission done. As a wingman, you pretty much just listen and follow the lead around until he tells you to shoot something. Well, so this one day, as we went out to start up our aircraft, both the number 1 and the number 3 pilots had maintenance problems. Both the number 2 guy and myself had good jets, so I called on the radio to the flight lead and asked if he wanted me to shut down my aircraft so that he could take my jet. He called back and said, "No, you go ahead and take off. You're a certified flight lead. You have the lead. Complete the mission." So there I was, flying a few hundred miles from Saudi Arabia into Iraq that morning, suddenly the chief guy responsible for getting our mission done. I had a good friend of mine as my wingman, who actually was in the same F-16 training class as me. So we were both pretty young and inexperienced, actually. Needless to say, I was terrified of screwing something up, much less getting us shot at or killed, or shooting our missiles too close to friendly Army guys on the ground, or something else catastrophic that you would have probably seen on CNN the next day. Well, it ended up turning out better than I could have imagined. I got tasked by command and control to a mobile enemy radar site that our intelligence guys had found pulled off to the side of the highway. I made 2 passes and destroyed it. We didn't get shot at. We made it back to the base with enough gas without getting lost. And that day, once I got back, I finally, truly, for the first time, felt like a hero. My other crazy, memorable day was only 2 days later, when I was the wingman again for a 2-ship formation. And I fired a missile that I believe saved a friend of mine who was getting shot at continuously in a high-threat zone right in Baghdad. As soon as my missile hit, the enemy radars quit targeting him, and he was able to get out and get back to base. As we turned south to head back into Saudi Arabia, we thought we were done for the day and starting to relax. But as we got closer to the base, we got a radio call that the base was under a sandstorm, and we had to divert to Kuwait. So we turned around, back north, and went to land in Kuwait just as the storm was actually also getting ready to hit there. That night, I slept on the floor of another pilot's trailer room in my clothes with no pillow and 1 blanket. We had a Scud missile launched by the Iraqis that night at the base while I was there. So the alarms went off, and everybody had to run into bunkers and put on their gas masks and anti-chemical weapon gear. Well, I and the other 4 pilots that had diverted with me to Kuwait from Saudi Arabia had no gear. So we sat hiding under a table and basically laughed at how everyone else would know whether it was okay based on whether we lived or died. Looking back now, that night hardly seems real, like it happened to somebody else other than me. Somehow, we all made it through without losing anyone, though. In fact, as a leader now, I realize that those deployments that I was on, plus another one later where we were actually stationed at a base inside Iraq in 2005, those deployments were all amazingly successful because we had no casualties ever from any of my units. Even better, all the strike aircraft that we were responsible for protecting made it with no losses too. Many service members these days, especially Army and Marine Corps troops, are not nearly so fortunate and suffer for many years the trauma they witnessed and were part of on the battlefield. I was lucky. My roommate from F-16 training, Frank Bryant, was not so lucky. Frank was killed in Afghanistan in 2011 while he was stationed there to help train the Afghan Air Force. Frank was shot and killed in his office building by one of the Afghans who was there to train. So I do indeed feel lucky. That isn't to say, of course, that luck was the only reason, though. In fact, just the opposite. Our squadrons trained and prepared day after week after month after year for those deployments. I studied my keister off, learning everything about my airplane, our weapons, and our enemy that I possibly could. We all trusted each other to defend each other with our lives. This is the amazing professionalism of the all-volunteer American military. Today, it keeps evil in check all over the globe. It is without a doubt the greatest fighting force the world has ever seen. As I thought about coming here tonight, though, I realized that Carroll High School has played its role in keeping me alive and happy and well throughout my career, too. It's actually really pretty amazing how many diverse specialties go into flying airplanes for a living, and how so many of those actually tie back to things that I learned at Carroll. Classes at Carroll helped really build a foundation of well-rounded knowledge and confidence that propelled me not just through the engineering school at Princeton, but through my entire Air Force career. One of the first classes I had at Carroll was biology with Miss Dillon, where I got a sudden wake-up, by the way, as to how much more difficult Carroll would be than grade school. That first Carroll biology class came in handy the first few weeks of pilot training, when we had to learn about hypoxia and the vestibular canals of the inner ear, and about night vision and many other topics during our aerospace physiology training. I never actually liked biology very much, but I was glad I had paid attention, and I kept up with, of course, with the Air Force training just fine. Chemistry class with Mrs. Keller during my sophomore year at Carroll, I enjoyed much more than biology. I remember using a crucible and the Bunsen burners in the lab and working out molecular conversion formulas on the chalkboard. As a pilot, I have actually never found the need to determine the exact CO2 and water output of burning simple sugars. But I did have to learn about the similarities and differences between our oil-based aviation fuel and our newer, greener biofuel. I had to understand the chain reaction taking place in my bomb fuses after an electric charge initiated combustion. And I had to understand that our emergency generators' burning of toxic hydrazine into ammonia was actually a good thing if I needed it in an emergency. Physics class with Miss Fuhrer was actually right up my alley, even more than chemistry. Force, gravity, acceleration, kinetic and potential energy, electromagnetic waves. These are cool topics to understand how the world works around us, to me, in real visible ways. Flying fighter planes relies very heavily on these same concepts. Lift, drag, weight, thrust, radio, radar, lasers. So many of our cutting-edge engineering developments derive from these basic concepts. Indeed, I needed my physics background for so many things throughout the years. But what about those other subjects beyond science? Were they useful? You bet. As a flight lead and an officer, I've needed to speak effectively in front of audiences large and small, focused and broad, as well as write effective memos, test reports, training reports, evaluations, and all other kinds of communications. 3 years ago, I sat in the office of the 4-star General Larry Spencer, the Vice Chief of Staff of the entire Air Force in the Pentagon in Washington, D.C. And I was honestly pickled pink when he read, nodded at, and signed the approval for a strategic planning document that I had written. You bet that I appreciated my English classes with Miss Downey, Miss Worms, and Mr. Jim Hemmert that day. How about history and economics and government? The Air Force is all about history, American, world, regional. Chinese philosopher General Sun Tzu from a millennia ago, early military aviation history in World War I, the political, cultural, ethnic history and geography of the Middle East and South Asia today, the workings of the US government. All of this is absolutely important for a pilot going to combat or an officer trying to get funding for the next generation of test equipment. Mr. Hofler, Mr. Hyder, Ms. Cafferkey, Mr. Rakel set me up for confidently operating with these issues. Mathematics was actually always my best subject in school. At Carroll, Mrs. Stimson's geometry and trigonometry classes were tough, but they're probably the learning that has actually made the biggest difference in my success throughout the years, especially in flying. Flying is actually all about geometry. The radius of a 9G turn, the shortest angle to cut off and intercept an airplane, the lead angle required to hit a moving target with a gunshot. And trigonometry is constantly in use, taking sines and cosines of dive angles to get altitudes and slant ranges while bombing a target. Even, believe it or not, my Russian classes at Carroll ended up coming in some use. Miss Vicki Spearman would be very pleased to know that when I had my one training test sortie at Naval Test Pilot School in a Russian MiG-15 aircraft, I was the only guy in the class that could actually read their gauges that were still written in Russian. Finally, religion. What are we fighting for? Should we kill people? What is a just war? I remember Father Mike's class on ethics and morality our senior year, and that was the first time that I heard the term a just war. I feel very, very, very glad that these principles were first taught to me when I was at Carroll. This is, to me, the most important part, to understand not just what we can and can't do, or should and shouldn't do, but why we can or should or shouldn't. As a combat veteran, I have had to reconcile my actions and deeds with my beliefs and my soul. It is uncomfortable sometimes to consider that I may have contributed to irreparable harm to innocent people. To me, it tears at the fabric of life and its meaning to contemplate the potentially eternal impact of those actions. The Air Force trains us repeatedly, though, on the law of armed conflict and our rules of engagement. These laws and rules are all about causing only the minimum damage to accomplish our political objectives, and not causing harm to innocent non-combatants if possible. In fact, after the capture and torture of American airmen shot down during the Korean War, the U.S. military greatly expanded their capabilities in combat search and rescue. This is one of the real reasons why I think I grew to love the Air Force and enjoy serving. The Air Force values and priorities spoke to something deep inside of me, something that I think grew from its infancy here at Carroll. The idea that human life is sacred and is worth preserving, supporting, and developing. It would be cheaper, easier, and more practical in many ways to just cut our losses when an American is captured by terrorists or tyrants. But that's not what we do. We have a motto: never leave an airman behind. This also reaches finally to why I love this nation so much. I've known for years deep down that America is the greatest nation in history, due to our culture, our capitalist system, our government, and our Constitution, and of course our diverse immigrant-descended people. But I actually just realized finally, in thinking about what I would say tonight, what I think is at the real core of why I believe America is great. The U.S. was really one of the first true democracies that empowered every citizen to vote. In doing so, America says, you, the individual, are valued and have a voice and have the power to steer this nation, no matter where you come from, no matter your race or religion, no matter what your work is, no matter whether you have money or property or anything else. You are valued simply for your human life. I feel so lucky that Father Mike taught these concepts to me in his senior religion class. And America recognizes that the respect and value for individual human life and freedoms is the highest goal. This is why America is great. And these same values, I feel, are derived from the Catholic teachings anchored in a Carroll education. Carroll gave me a foundation of knowledge and awareness and confidence in how to succeed in service to America, but more importantly, in why that service matters. Thank you, Carroll, for listening to my stories. I'm deeply honored to be here tonight with this illustrious group. May God bless Carroll. Today's a great day to be a patriot.
Congratulations, Charlie. Thank you for your service. And I think I finally decided who to vote for this presidential election. I will be writing in the name Charlie Middleton. I don't know if you'll win, but just saying. Yeah. At this time, Carroll High School's Alumni Association will officially induct the 2016 class of the Distinguished Alumni Hall of Fame, and then we'll have a formal photo of all of the inductees that will be taken here on stage. I'd like to ask the audience to remain seated during the ceremony, the photo, and until after the closing prayer. Would the 2016 inductees please return to the front of the stage and go to stage left? There are handy little tape marks with your name on them. So somebody was very clever, Julie or Pam or somebody. Oh, Ryan. Okay, it was Ryan. We'll give Ryan the credit there. So we'll have our 2016 inductees come up. And then we'd like to have all of the former Distinguished Alumni Hall of Fame inductees present from 2008, 2009, 2010, 2012 and 2014, please join me in welcoming the newest members of our Hall of Fame family. And I will ask our former inductees to go stage right. And your names are not there, but there are little taped cross marks for you to stand. Thank you, Ryan, again. Your fellow alumni, the administration, faculty, staff, and students of Carroll High School want it to be known that you are distinguished in our midst and shall evermore be remembered as members of this honored Hall of Fame, in which you are recognized and held up as examples of what it means to be Carroll High School alumni, true patriots for life, and examples of the ideals of church, family, country, community, and service. Be it so known, be you so honored. Ladies and gentlemen.
I think this has been one of the really best ceremonies that we've ever had. What a great group of inductees. I want to start by thanking some individuals for this really wonderful night. Let's get one more round of applause for our inductees. There have been a lot of thank yous to the committee members, but as you can see by the product that they've put out tonight, that 1, 2, 10, 20 thank yous aren't enough. It was a great, great night, and you ladies and gentlemen have worked so hard. So thank you, and I especially want to thank Julie White. She has a committee of people who are willing to do anything she asks, but Julie likes to make sure everything is right all the time, and so she doesn't ask, and I appreciate your efforts because you're amazing. A big thank you to Cheryl. Cheryl Mchenry, you're amazing. You never, ever disappoint. Please know that we recognize how hard you work to make these events so very special to each and every one of us, people who are being inducted, and those of us in the audience. You're just really, really a special gem to us, so thank you. I want to remind everyone that tomorrow at 11 o'clock we'll have a mass in memory of deceased alumni and faculty, and that will be at 11 o'clock at Immaculate Conception, right? Okay, so if you can make it, it's a really wonderful event. Father Satish always makes it a very special event for all of us. Mike mentioned that Carroll is a worthy cause and opportunity, and I can't stress that enough. I would like to ask you to consider that when you get a call from me or a personal invitation to support the annual fund, that you prayerfully discern how you want to answer that call. Our school is at a really critical point right now where competition is fierce in the Dayton area, and we are not as sparkly and shiny as a lot of the competitors. We still have what matters most. Families choose their schools by the best education. People choose Catholic education because of the quality of the education, and we're the best. So I ask you, prayerfully discern that answer. And speaking of prayer, Matt, why don't you come up and wrap us up with a prayer?
Thank you, Pam. And so we say in the name of the Father, and the Son, and the Holy Spirit, amen. Strong and faithful God, we thank you for the gift of Carroll High School and all the people who make it so strong. Students past, students present, students in the future, Lord. Families who come together, who sacrifice to make your will, to make your mission living and breathing here on earth in Dayton, Ohio. Thank you, Lord, for the gift of Carroll. Thank you for the inductees tonight and all who made this event so special. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen. In the name of the Father, and the Son, and the Holy Spirit, amen. Thank you all, and have a great evening.